Social Security is going to be insolvent by 2035. Now, according to whom? According to the Social Security Administration, according to the people who run it, straight from the horse's mouth, it's going to be insolvent by 2035. By 2035, only 80% of promised payments can be made. So if you're expecting entitlements in about 16 years, expect to only receive about 80% is what they're saying. Now, that's now politicians might spin that one way or another, right? They might say that, you know, there's a shortage here, right? There's a liquidity problem, there's a cash problem. Well, in the real world, we call it bankrupt. So the Social Security Administration is going bankrupt. I think a lot of people already knew this. But the thing to get is that someone's going to get the short end of the stick here. Okay, Washington might kick the can down the road. Maybe under the next presidency, maybe under this presidency, we'll see some kind of reform. What I don't want to see happen is just the simple bailout of the Social Security Trust Fund. To simply tax the difference, that extra 20% is really not the way to go. The administration, the Social Security Administration, has already proven itself to be quite inefficient. And I'll show you a graph here, if I can find it. So the expected rate of return on Social Security at its best is about 2%, and is often, and for several years of one's life, or based on your income. So based on your income, if you make about $10,000, your expected real rate of return on Social Security is about 2%. If you make over $130,000, it goes into the negative. So it's not really a winner when it comes to retirement planning in the first place. And so it hasn't really grown people's money anyway. If you stick your money in an IRA, and I'll get into that in a minute, you would do a lot better. And so why keep that program alive is something to think about. Definitely do not fund the difference. And what also might happen is that there might be a one-time bailout, but then it never gets restructured. So the politicians say, oh, like, let's just make sure that these people that have these entitlements are taken care of, and then we'll figure it out later. That's dangerous too, because you're only giving the addict more drugs in that case. You're not actually getting to the root of the problem. And so I want to compare this a bit to just your simple stock market account, investment account. The thing about this is that when you have a 2% return on investment at best from this, you really need to make other arrangements. No matter what the government does, you need to be making your own arrangements for retirement. It's not going, I wouldn't trust it to work out, and we don't know where this is going to go politically. And so I want to give you an idea of what the differences are if you have like a money market account or something. So, give you an example. S&P 500 stocks have returned an average of 6.6% a year over inflation over the last 30 years. Okay, so stocks go up and down, right? If you watch Bloomberg, you'll just see, okay, every day it's going up, it's going down, crashed this spike here. But over 30 years, you're looking at it at 6.6% return on investment. Compare that with the 2% in the best case scenario with Social Security. Something that's arguably safer would be AAA corporate bonds. What are AAA corporate bonds? Well, there are ratings organizations here in the United States, namely Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and there are others. And the ratings organizations rate bonds, and bonds are basically debt issued by companies. So you would be giving, let's say, General Motors or Apple a little bit of money by buying part of the bond. And so, and AAA just means it's the highest rating, means it's the safest investment for that class. So the class being corporate bonds, AAA are the safest of the corporate bonds. The real like blue chip companies, the companies that you, your dad and grandpa, your uncle, and your best friend all know about. And the returns on those are about 3.6% after inflation. So again, better than the Social Security Administration. And I also want to point out that the Supreme Court in 1960 ruled that Social Security benefits are not a contractual right, meaning that you couldn't sue the government if they didn't fund your disability payments or your Social Security payments. They don't actually have a contractual right to fulfill on any of that. And so while workers are obligated to pay Social Security taxes, the government is not obligated to pay you. That's really important to get. Now, just to give you an idea, even Treasury bonds would be a better option. Treasury bonds these days yield about 2.9%. It's still higher than that 2% number. And you are actually, if you buy a Treasury bond, meaning the U.S. government would pay you back, and they would be contractually obligated to pay you back. So even that would be better. And 2.9% is kind of a boring return on investment. I mean, you don't have to look very far to get something better than that as an average person. So really, we want to be looking into companies like Vanguard. Go pick up a portfolio that's based on the index, like the S&P 500. Get something really simple. Listen to Warren Buffett's advice, like just buy and hold stocks, and learn a little bit about it, and don't trust the politicians who've already screwed up this fund called the Social Security Administration with your money. And so I hope that's kind of educated you on the differences between some of the options that we have as citizens versus Social Security. And it remains to be seen what the politicians do. But another thing too is that no one has actually come up with a solid plan to restructure it. The politicians and the current Democratic National Committee convention that are running against Donald Trump, they're still working out who's going to be the primary candidate, the front runner. But no one has really addressed this. The president hasn't addressed this. There hasn't been any proposal. So if you know of any proposals, I'd like to hear about it. Drop a comment. And that's also something that I'd like to see is like, how do you deal with this 20% shortfall in payments and still have everything work, right? It's like, okay, people are going to get the short end of the stick and taxes are going to go up. Like, that doesn't look good. But how do we get out of this mess? Remains to be seen.